My name's Janie Frampton, and at 15, I fell in love. Not with boys, as some may think. I fell in love with football. And at the time, that was against the social norm because football wasn't for girls. So when I asked my father for football boots for Christmas, well, of course I got them because we know how to twist our fathers around our little finger. And that was the start of my journey. And from the day I entered football, I believed that I was performing at the edge of my comfort zone. Really uncomfortable to start with, but I learnt to be comfortably uncomfortable. What I also realised naively that being a woman in football was the biggest barrier to me succeeding and achieving my goals. Football wasn't ready for girls, didn't want us, didn't know what to do with us either. So that was an issue for us. But it wasn't that much of an issue because I went on to become the second woman to operate in men's professional football. So that was quite an achievement. So I started off playing at 15, and there were very few playing opportunities. So after I had my children in my early 20s, the only way I could go back to football was to become a referee. It's the only way I could get involved on that green bit. So I took up refereeing, and then I took up my coaching qualifications, my UEFA qualifications, so that it would help my refereeing. And I thought that way, when they're talking about switching plays and positional play, I would know what they're talking about more. So constantly, I was there developing myself. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about how that transitioned into my career. I went from playing to refereeing in a time when it was not the social norm for girls to be involved in football. Two kinds of people in this world, there's you and everybody else. And the one thing I say very clearly is be yourself. Be authentic. Now, I loved football. And regardless of what people said at the time, I was determined that I was going to succeed in football. I did 80 to 100 games every season, men's games, youth football games, women's games, because I wanted to make mistakes and I wanted to learn from those mistakes and I wanted to progress. Even though people thought I was a gimmick, why on earth would a girl want to be involved in football? But for me, it was my passion. And I wanted to be taken seriously. And I wanted to be the best I could be. I love this photo. This was the first ever men's professional game in the world that was officiated by three women. There's Wendy Toms in the middle, and obviously myself. And I was the second woman that came through the men's professional game, and Amy Rayner, who was the third woman. But one thing it taught me really clearly was that you had to be resilient in adversity. You had to have ambition. You had to have belief in yourself. And then you had to think about, what did your future hold? Where is this taking you? It's a big opportunity. It at a time when football didn't know what to do with women. And so I look at, we have just one opportunity to make a first impression. And we use this in business a lot because if you have 6 seconds to make that first impression, it can take a lifetime to try and change that. And in football, it's the same. When you blow that first whistle to call the captains together, if you don't blow that whistle assertively, long enough, sharp enough, then you're not going to get the respect from the players on the field. So I believe using my whistle in football is just like first impressions when I meet people outside of football. It has the same effect on people. We talk about football for me was all about adversity and resilience. And I didn't realize how resilient I was until I reflect back and realized I really was hugely. When you get opportunities put in front of you, you just think, do I want to do it? Can I do it? Oh, if I do it, I might fail at it. I could try it. And if you have a positive mindset, you will go from, no, I can't do it, I won't do it, to, oh, well, okay, maybe I can. And eventually you did it. And if I had adopted the attitude right at the beginning, I won't do it, I can't do it, I would never have achieved what I did. Because extraordinary things happen to very ordinary people. And that doesn't happen unless you make it happen. So achieving opportunities is great. Realizing when they're coming along is great. But also creating those opportunities yourself. That's hugely important. Because if you don't create them, then sometimes you could be sitting there for a long time waiting for them to come and they just won't. I talk very basically about the resilience of women in football and the Ditko ladies in 1921 when they were attracting crowds of 56,000. But the FA banned women from playing football. And it wasn't until 1974 when a group of volunteer women created the Women's Football Association, and not until 1994 where the FA recognised women in football. Now, I say this brief history lesson because I qualified in 1991 at a time when football didn't want women. So you can imagine how difficult that was. And even now, only 3% of the registered referees we have in this country, almost 30,000, are women. So we still have an awful long way to go to achieve equity before we start on equality. But throughout my journey, as I was being promoted, which was very difficult at times, because of course we have to do men's fitness tests and we have to perform 100% of our fitness max to pass the men's fitness test, whereas men only have to perform at 75 to 80%, which is why we don't get an awful lot of women coming through, because the fitness test is really difficult. But I just wanted to be the best I could be. And I now knew that I was building the resilience to survive, not just to survive, but to achieve. And out of every negative, I found a positive because that was the only way that I could move forward. If I allowed the negativity to tie me down, I couldn't move forward. So the tougher it was, the more I learned. And I set very realistic and achievable goals. I wanted the next promotion or two promotions so that I could then become regional as a referee. And then the doors opened internationally and I represented my country 33 times internationally. I would never have dreamt that would have happened. And then I wanted to work on every continent. And so that was my next goal. And they must evolve. Don't let them be fixed, because if they're fixed, your mind gets fixed and you don't look at all the opportunities that are around. And one of the opportunities I had was to become a FIFA instructor in 2005. It wasn't given to me, the opportunity. I said to my boss at the FA at the time, how do I become a FIFA instructor? I'm the highest level woman in this country as an instructor and a trainer. How do I get onto FIFA? And he gave me an email address and I contacted the individual who was head of women's development at FIFA, and I became one of 8 women in the world who became FIFA instructors. And so I traveled the world, working on every continent. It was another of my goals and ambitions. I worked in every continent and so many countries that it would be too many to name. But the experiences were amazing. And I did all of this because I had that growth mindset. I believed in myself. And that's really important, because if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else is going to. And you have to learn to be comfortably uncomfortable at the edge of your comfort zone, because that's where you grow more. That's the importance. And I left working at the FA as a senior manager in 2012, set up my own consultancy, a social enterprise, and then also moved into gender leadership. And I worked into social enterprise projects around the world. We work across the Caribbean and in Africa and South America. And this was not now just across sport. This was very much around structures and strategies and governance and change management, because it doesn't matter whether it's sport or industry, this lived experience is the same. It's exactly the same, whatever sector you're working in. Some of our clients we're really proud of. We've worked with major global clients such as JP Morgan, KPMG, Rolls-Royce. And then equally so, we work with people like World Athletics, where we work with Lord Sebastian Coe for the last 6 years, designing and delivering his gender leadership. We work with the ECB around governance, strategies and structures, about creating inclusive environments, intergenerational learning, intersectionality. This is what's going to make cohesive communities within the workplace. So I have expanded not just sport and industry, but this was also an area where cultural difference was so important. This was the Dubai Sports Council, where I was looking at hosting an event which we ended up doing. I also worked in Saudi Arabia for 2 years, which was difficult again for a woman when you look at the cultural nuances. So it is about that growth mindset. It is about adapting to the change that surrounds you. If I'd have stayed in sport, then I would never have had the amount of experiences that I now have. And it's from learning from the setbacks and turning them into successes and learning the power of curiosity, asking questions, wanting to learn and develop more, and always performing at the edge of your comfort zone. And having the resilience and the innovation to survive in this ever changing world that we live in. And one of the highlights, I guess, is the biggest sports conference in the world, Sport Accord, where it came to the UK and I was asked to speak, where we had an amazing conversation about not just the abuse of referees, officials in sport, but this was about society changes. And was it more of a societal issue or was it more about a sport issue? But again, really interesting people I meet with really interesting conversations. And I talk about the 10 points to succeed. And most of you know these, but it's really good just to reflect sometimes to make sure that we are heading forward, but with the right skills and attributes. Be ambitious, but take people with you. There's nothing worse than looking over your shoulder as a leader and seeing nobody's following you. Respect criticism and feedback. You may not always take it, but respect it, reflect on it, and decide what is useful. Recognize, seize, and create opportunities. Don't wait for them to come to you. Go out and make them. Set your goals. Make sure they're realistic and measurable and ever evolving. And don't let the fear of failure stop you from achieving your goals going forward. And never stop learning and developing, because that's what's going to make you the ever evolving change management individual that you need to be for the future. Follow your passion, as I did with my football from 15, never dreaming where it was going to take me, because extraordinary things happen to very ordinary people. Build a support group, a strong network around you, and be authentic and resilient in everything you do. And most importantly, believe in yourself. It takes more than competence to be a leader. It takes a voice, confidence, and gravitas. Be bold. You have the power to do this. Own it. Thank you.